how could LSU pull off the upset against Alabama? It's in Death Valley. LSU's coming off a bye week. So is Alabama, but LSU has been trending upward the past few weeks. We've seen the offense kick it into gear. We've seen them play their really best football of the season these last two games. So the line right now is Alabama -13, but let's just take a view of things from the LSU perspective. If you're an LSU faithful, how do you win? How do you get the upset? I think there's a couple of key variables that need to go your way, but here's the path. The first thing, you got to throw the first punch. You got big bad Alabama coming to your house in a night game in Death Valley. You got to draw first blood, whatever that looks like, whether it's a turnover, whether it's a touchdown, whether it's a big hit to get momentum your way, you have to swing first. Because for LSU, we've seen a couple of times they've taken the first punch, meaning they've had to eat that first punch. And to their credit, they've done okay when that's been the case. Games they've taken the first punch in, there's a fair amount of them. The Florida State game, got hit first. Mississippi State got hit first. Against Auburn, got hit first. Tennessee got hit first. Ole Miss was 17-3 at one point. Now, the good news is when they take that first punch, when they take one on the chin, they're okay, kind of collecting themselves, tasting their own blood, getting back after it. That's kind of how LSU has played football recently. They've adjusted well. But with Alabama, they're scoring 43 points a game. You really don't want to be in a situation where they go up by 10 and, okay, now let's get going. It's 17-3, much like that game against Ole Miss. Now let's kick it into gear. That's not a situation you can really be in with Alabama. Too much talent. They're too well coached, have too much outstanding personnel. Bryce Young being one of them at quarterback, got a Heisman Trophy in his living room in Tuscaloosa. That's not really how you want to get down this game. So if you're able to draw first blood, one, you kind of get to dictate the tempo of the game a little bit more. The second piece of that is it gets the crowd into it. And you and I both know Death Valley at night is like a powder keg. It's just begging for an excuse to erupt. And if you draw first blood, you land that first punch, that's the match that could cause the entire place to absolutely go off. I'm Jody Pickell. This is The Hard Count. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, we would love to have you along for the ride. A ton of you LSU fans have already jumped on board. Thank you so much. We love you so much. If you haven't yet, come join the party. We have a really good time. Also follow me on Instagram at JDPickell. Follow me on Twitter there as well. The second thing that has to happen for LSU to be able to pull off this upset, you got to push the ball vertical. And to LSU's credit, we've seen them do a much better job of that these last couple of games. And I think in large part, that's why we've seen more offensive success. Again, 45 points in each of their last two games. And if you're an LSU fan, you know you got some absolute dogs on the outside, like DAWGS, not DOGS, DAWGS. You know there is a difference, and they got a lot of them at LSU in that wide receiver room. Two players I'm looking at really closely in that receiver room. Boutte, probably the best player on the field, wherever he steps in, and Jayden Jenkins. Boutte, like I already mentioned, his talent and what he can do with the ball in his hands has to be a sticking point for LSU in this game. You need to allow your best player to have an impact on this game. Get him touches, whether it's the screen game, the slant game, whatever it is, get him touches. Like I said, I think it has to be vertical. I would really encourage LSU to test that secondary frequently. Jayden Jenkins, 6'2", right around 200 pounds. Alabama has a lot of matchups in this game that they like. I don't think Jayden Jenkins is one of them. They've proven on multiple occasions they struggle with big body wide receivers. Just go ahead and ask Tennessee and Brew McCoy how he liked that game. Go ahead and talk to Texas about what they were able to get with Ja'Tavion Sanders in that game. There is a pattern here that we are sensing. And with big body wide receivers, when that ball is in the air, the Alabama secondary likes to get a little bit grabby, like to tuck on jersey, like to be a little bit physical. They don't play the ball super well in the air, at least consistently. So if I'm LSU, you test that. And like we said, they've done a better job of that. The last two games, Jayden Daniels averaging right around 9 yards of completion. Doesn't sound like a lot. In the context of what LSU does offensively, that's really good. They're going to need more of that going forward. So for Jayden Daniels as well, you got to unhitch the wagon. Because Alabama, in terms of penalty yards per game, guess what? They're 121st at the very least, you try and draw a pass interference play, right? I mean, like, that's never the hope, is to just throw it up and get a penalty. But that's one of the benefits that you have in this game. So like we talked about, there may not be 22 matchups that you like if you're LSU, but you don't need 22 matchups to get an upset. You just need one, and to have the efficacy of that be noticeable and have it rear its head multiple times in this game. That's how you win the football game. Having that going offensively, that's a really big deal. The final thing I'm looking at for LSU, if they want to get this upset, the defense has done an unbelievable job. I mean, Harold Perkins is a certified dog. Another one of those dogs, D-A-W-G, that we talked about a minute ago, they have in the receiver room. They got one in Harold Perkins. And oh, by the way, he was at prom just a few months ago, making a big impact for them. Matt House, in my opinion, has done one of the best assistant coaching jobs anywhere in the country. Like, my money rides with Matt House. And one of the things they've done so successfully is adjusting at halftime. We've seen many times throughout the season, they just straight up take the handle, turn it a little bit, shut off the water. Second half, they just say, nope, you're done. And that's great. LSU would very much be pleased and be excited to do that in a game like this. Now, what I think is crucial, if you're Matt House and company on defense, you need to make those adjustments before halftime. Like, you have to be pretty nimble in this game. Because what we've seen from LSU, if there's ever any bleeding, they do a good job stopping it. But for this game against Alabama, with how potent they are offensively, with Jahmyr Gibbs, with Bryce Young, you can't wait till the third quarter to stop the bleeding. That's like trying to stop the bleeding when you've already lost both your arms. It's like, hey, that's great that you're doing your best to stop the bleeding, but the damage is done. And that's not the reality you want to live in if you're an LSU fan or if you're LSU as a program. So they have the personnel. Don't get it twisted. They've got some guys within this program, especially on this defense, to be able to do some really good things defensively, but it has to happen earlier in the game. Because if you're trying to play catch up with Alabama, it's not going to be a great story to tell. So in short, it's possible. But these three areas, in my mind, need to be winning points for LSU to get the upset at home in Death Valley against the Alabama Crimson Tide. Throw the first punch, connect, swing at the bully, knock them down. That changes the entire complexion of the game, changes the volume of the game as well, if you catch my drift. Second piece, unhitch the wagon, let your dogs eat. Jere Jenkins, throw it up. Kayshon Boutte, get it to him vertically. Let them have an impact on the game, Jayden Daniels. He's done a great job of it as of late. Finally, the defense. Let's be nimble. Let's adjust. Let's double down on what works. And what doesn't, let's not wait to see if it eventually does. Let's be quick to make adjustments. They adjust really, really well, probably better than anybody in college football. Let's do it quickly in this game. All right? Again, this has been The Hard Count. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for those of you that have already subscribed. If you haven't yet, come join the party. Come sub to the channel. Nick Bragg does the real heavy lifting, but you drive the show. We're live on Tuesday. We're live on Thursday. We're going to break down this game in its entirety on our Tuesday live show. So jump in the chat. Let us know what you're thinking. We'll have a great time. So until then, we're going to keep the party rolling, and we will see y'all next time. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.